Welcome back to It's Personal, brought to you by Gunderson Health System. I'm Chris Stauffer. There's a new campaign out. It's called Stop the Bleed, which sounds very severe, by the way, Tom. Tom Carpenter is joining us. He's a paramedic with Gunderson Health System. Thanks for being here to talk about the campaign.
Thanks for having me.
Stop the Bleed sounds serious. What is the campaign?
Well, it's a federally regulated campaign that they came up with all the stuff that's going on in the United States and in the war zones and stuff like that.
You're talking about like mass casualties.
Mass casualties, different kind of weaponry, explosive devices and stuff. They're seeing a lot more serious injuries that, have a lot of bleeding, and the bleeding is the number one thing that kills people that's preventable. And so this campaign is designed around to teach civilians what to do until help arrives. Because in those same situations, it might take a long time for help to arrive.
So we're talking about things like tourniquets.
Correct.
Talk about what a tourniquet means when it comes to saving a life, and whether it's a mass casualty event or an industrial accident, and why having the proper tools close to hand is important.
Well, a tourniquet is one of the devices in this training. We teach a couple different techniques, but the tourniquet is something that's easy to do, easy to use, and it stops bleeding without a whole lot of time being taken. And it can be put on even by the victim themselves in most cases, and it will stop the bleeding, most of the time. And it doesn't take any medical training or knowledge at all to put one on.
As a paramedic, you've come across scenes where tourniquets have been put in place.
Correct.
They save lives.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about, maybe give us an example of coming on an accident scene, a car accident scene, and as a paramedic, what you would do to put that tourniquet in place, and why learning how to properly do that is so important.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons it's so important, if someone has a really severe bleeding from a large artery, for instance, it would only take a matter of minutes for them to lose all of their blood volume, and you can't survive without blood volume. So the quicker it gets put on, the better. And so commonly in my profession, where we see it is going to be industrial accidents or car accidents, car pedestrian accidents are very common, and then of course gunshot wounds, knife wounds, things like that, lawnmower injuries, where a tourniquet might be necessary to be used.
Now, a lot of people would say, well, isn't there something I could use around the house as a tourniquet while I'm waiting for the paramedic to be there, to get there? And a lot of people would say, you just put it on, tightly. I think where it comes into play many times is people think of it as a snake bite, that you put a tourniquet on in a snake bite situation.
Right. No, what we recommend is to not use a tourniquet unless you have a commercial device. And the reason why that's so important is because these are designed especially to not cause further damage. And so it has to be a certain width, it has to be a certain kind of material, and then it has what we call a windlass thing on it, so you tighten it up and tighten it up and tighten it up until the bleeding stops. And it's simple to apply, simple to use, but it's also safer for the patient or the victim to use that commercial device. And so when we do this training, we teach you what to do if you don't have a commercial device available.
Let's talk about that training, because training is important. As a paramedic, you see that all the time, that people think that they can just do some of these things, but proper training is key.
Yes. And the training is very simple. It doesn't take very long, but it's just the important steps. And, we talk about, the very first thing is just talk about how do you make yourself safe? What do you have to think about when you go to one of these incidents? And then, just to recognize the bleeding and where it's coming from, how to expose it, and then whether or not to use pressure or packing versus a tourniquet. And so that's all part of the classes when it's appropriate.
So there's a couple components here. We are looking to get training out to the public.
Correct.
And you're going to have to look for different ways that that's going to occur by going to the Gunderson Health System website. But there's also the component of not just the training, but it's getting these tourniquets out into the community. What's going on there?
Well, there's a lot of different things. There's lots of agencies that are working on it, rural hospitals, in-city hospitals and things like that. Ambulance services, fire departments, first responders all have the ability to get some of these kits out there in the public areas. Our goal is to get them with every defibrillator out there, every automatic external defibrillator. and get them in industry and things like that where they're easily accessible.
And then have that training that goes along with it as
Correct.
well. So what's in this kit?
In the kit would be a tourniquet. It will have in there, depends on where you get the kit. Locally, there will be a scissors in it. The tourniquet will have a trauma bandaging in there for embedding into wounds to help stop the bleeding. And it will have, a pair of gloves so you don't get your hands all full of blood and things like that.
Okay, so obviously several different layers, and then how to properly use that kit is important. Now, from what I understand, Tri-State Ambulance is going to be trying to put on some public sessions on how to use these kits, but more importantly, getting these kits out into the community initially is what the goal is.
Correct.
All right. How are you going to do that? Are you looking for individuals to be contacting Gunderson? Are you looking to get that information out in what way?
I think probably the best way is to go through Gunderson, and then they can direct you into, depending on where you live and what resources are available in that area of how to get the equipment.
Now, you're teaching these classes. What are you learning at these classes from the public?
What I learned from the public is, most people have kind of a general idea of what to do, but they don't know the correct way to do it. They heard of the word tourniquet before. They put them on, and in the old days we would see people use like tree branches and hammers and whatever to tighten up the cravat that they put on their extremity. In real life, most bleeding stops with just direct pressure, but so we're talking about the really bad bleed. So what we're learning in the class is that the people really don't know the difference between minor bleeding and severe bleeding. But again, there's really good videos that come with the class that kind of show examples, and it helps them know, not to put a tourniquet on someone's cut finger, but to put it on the really serious ones.
Again, more information about these classes is going to be available online at the GundersonHealth.org website. But at these classes, about an hour long?
Yep.
Is that what it takes? Is generally an hour long, depending on class size?
Yes. In the class size, we will, if it's more than 8 people, we add more instructors. The lecture all can take place in one part, but then there's a hands-on portion where we have you actually put tourniquets on some mannequins or on each other. Just don't tighten them up. And then there's in that hands-on portion, we have one instructor for every 8 students, so it doesn't take very long to get everyone through.
So demographic-wise, who are we looking to have come to these classes? Anyone, or would it be better to have, I'll say, somebody from a manufacturing company? Are we looking for teachers to be there? Are we looking who should be coming to learn about the Stop the Bleed campaign?
Everybody, kids, adults, just because you don't know where these things are going to happen, and you don't have a lot of time for wait for people to get there. And so everybody should take the training. It's just like CPR training in a way. So we encourage everyone to do it. Some of the videos are a little graphic, so I wouldn't recommend it for really little kids, but high school kids and stuff would probably be good to take it.
All right. We're talking with Tom Carpenter, paramedic, Gunderson Health System, about the Stop the Bleed campaign. Are you seeing good results? Are you seeing, lots of interest? Or is this so early in the campaign yet that you haven't been able to really kind of get a feel for what the campaign's like?
Well, it is pretty early, but we are seeing a lot of interest. With the ALICE classes going on. That's a big question after ALICE classes is, okay, now we know how to do when an active shooter comes in your building, but then what do you do with the people who end up getting injured? And so this kind of can go hand in hand with that. And once people know that it's a short class, everyone wants to do it. And there's no test, and that takes away the fear from a lot of people.
All right. And again, more information on the Gunderson website. Tom, we're out of time, but we certainly appreciate your time, and good luck with the campaign.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Tom Carpenter, and paramedic, Gunderson Health System. If you want to learn more about the Stop the Bleed campaign, go to the Gunderson website, gundersonhealth.org.